Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ada. After my first YouTube video, which was last week, if you haven't checked that out, please do, link in the description. I started thinking about what else I could post about and what should I post about for my second video. And after scrolling through YouTube to find some inspiration, I decided that a lot of people were interested in investment properties, in the steps on how someone could buy one. And so I thought, well, I've had personal experience doing so, as I've had a real investment property for almost a year now. And so I thought I can help you and, give you some of the steps that it took for me to buy a rental property, since I've been through the whole process now. Step number one that I took in buying a rental property was figuring out if I had the necessary funds needed where I could buy a rental property but also not have all of my money just gone into the rental property, which I advise you not to do, especially when you just first start off. So for me, I had that necessary money and those funds after saving from working during high school and also my summers and my first 2 years of college. I had that money saved up and I was ready to do so. So after deciding whether I had the necessary funds or not, I then was going to decide whether I wanted to take on a mortgage or buy the home in cash. And so because I am young and was even younger last year, I decided to not have to deal with a mortgage, and so I'd rather buy it in cash, I thought. And so that's what I decided to do. And so next really came deciding on what type of home I wanted, as well as the location. And so as for the location, I knew that the more expensive states such as California, which is where I reside, New York, Utah, Oregon, Washington, places like that, they were really out of the question in terms of homes that don't really need a lot of renovation and are in areas that I would like, that would drive a lot of renters there. And so I decided to also rule out a lot of rural areas, just because they, like I said, don't have a lot of potential renters. And so the 5 main states that I looked at were Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Florida, and Illinois. And so after that came deciding whether I wanted to buy a single family home or if I wanted to get a condo. And so and this was just my personal advice, but because a condo does come with an HOA, while you do have to pay the HOA, of course, this also means that you're not really responsible for the exterior of the home, just in case something goes wrong. So for example, if something happens with the roofing or just any of the exterior of the home, the HOA will cover that. Whereas with a single family home with no HOA, if something like that does happen, if an accident happens, if something falls on your house, things like that, you do have to pay, out of pocket for that. Even though you have insurance, it could still be very costly. And so I didn't really want to take that risk with my first rental property. So I decided to get a condo. After that, I was able to narrow down the list of homes that I had to about 20 to 25. And while that does seem like a lot, I do have to say that I researched homes for many months, and 20 to 25 was actually very narrowed down compared to what I started with. So after narrowing down the list of homes to about 20 to 25, I also narrowed down a couple of states. Mostly, I picked states that had rent prices that were fairly high, but also HOA prices that were pretty low. And so basically what I did was I went on Zillow and researched homes, obviously, and then I filtered to about HOA that was $200 and lower, and for condos, and for prices of $40,000 and lower, even though I had $50,000 that I felt comfortable spending on buying a home, I knew that there would be extra fees and potential extra costs in the future. And so I didn't want to spend all of that $50,000 and rather just leave at least $10,000 of it just for anything that could come up. And so after I decided on the location and narrowed it down, like I said, I started contacting agents. And while I wasn't lucky at first with a lot of them, as they didn't return calls very fast, or the homes that they were listing got sold before I could even talk to them or see the homes, I eventually did land on a couple that I got lucky with. So with the ones that I did get lucky enough to see and talk to the agents with, I mostly just had Zoom calls or FaceTime calls or videos sent to me of the homes, just so I can see the interior of the home, the exterior, and around the homes, things like that. And what I asked the agents mostly was whether the house needed any work, and if there were a lot of potential renters in the area. Those were the two main questions that I had for them. And based off of that, I was able to narrow down my home search even further, and narrowed it down to about 8 or so homes, which were then also narrowed down just because of the simple fact that they got sold while I was making this decision. So eventually, after really narrowing them down to about 6 or 5 or so, whatever it was, I eventually decided on a home in Illinois, and I put in an offer a couple of $1,000s under the asking price, which is always a good thing to do. And it was luckily accepted. And then, contracts were signed, negotiations began, and right after that, inspections began on the home. And just a disclaimer for the inspections, just in case you've never had experience with one before. Inspections were during inspections, there will always be something that comes up, and so it's not something to really worry about, because it's usually minor. Major problems are the ones to worry about, obviously, but if it's something minor, it'll always come up in inspections, just because it's the inspector's job to really find something about the home that you need to fix. So no worries there. So luckily for me, during the inspection and after the inspection process, I saw that nothing major was wrong with the home, and there were just some minor fixes that I asked the previous owners to fix for me, which they did. After that came really the fun part, which was finding a renter and getting them settled in the home. And so, like I said, I live in California. The house is in Illinois, kind of a long distance away. And so I thought, well, I can't go over there and do it myself, obviously, because I have school. And so I talked to my real estate agent that helped me, and she was able to set me up with a management company, a property management company. And so basically what that is that it's a company that helps you basically manage your property. I mean, they collect rent from the tenant. They take care of any minor inconveniences or damage to the home that may come up, and they're always in contact with you about any new additional information that may pop up about anything regarding the home. And so I decided, because I was a couple of states away, that I needed someone there for the day-to-day tasks. And because I couldn't do that, I decided to work with a property management team, which I still work with. After, signing the contract with the management team, which took about a couple weeks or so, they helped me find a tenant pretty quickly. And it was a quick process because I wasn't very demanding on their requirements. I simply required them to get a background check on the person, and also for them to have the necessary funds to pay the rent each month. And so this whole process took about a month. And so within a month of me getting to work with the property management team, a tenant was in place. So as for these steps, that's really my process and all the things that I did to be able to get the home. However, there are some things to keep in mind that I found helpful, and I hope that you find helpful as well. So the first thing, and like probably the most important thing, is to be patient with this process. It took me maybe like 3 months in total, so it wasn't really that long compared to a lot of other people, but it could take longer, it could take shorter. Honestly, it depends on the situation, the home, the location. There's a lot of variables that go into that, but overall, just being patient really was the key. And another thing that I advise is to be super organized. So, as I said, narrowing down the homes at first was like 25, and so there were a lot of homes to keep track of. And what I did, which I found very helpful, was set up an Excel sheet with all of the HOA information, rent information, and the price information of each home, the addresses of each home, and just all the information that I thought was useful for each of the homes that I was considering. And the last thing that I would say to keep in mind definitely is to find a really good realtor. So as I said, I was super lucky to find a really good one, and she helped me through the entire process, from negotiations all the way to inspections, and even helping me, like I said, finding a management team, which eventually led to me finding a renter. And so if your realtor doesn't give you the time of day, doesn't return your calls or texts or anything like that, I advise you to really find one that will work for you and work with you on this process, because this process should be, something that they want just as much as you, and they should be incentivized to do the best work that they can for you and help you in any way that they can. So that really covers my process that I took and my personal experience in buying a home. However, I do know that I skipped a lot of things and didn't really go into a lot of details, such as with mortgages, finding lenders, things like that. However, in my next video, I will go into full detail about the home buying process and buying investment properties, what you need, what type of loans you need, how good your credit has to be, things like that. All that will be covered in my next video. However, this was more of a personal experience video and just something that I wanted to share with people. But in the next video, it will be covered in great detail. Thank you so much for watching the video. Be on the lookout, like I said, for the next one, which is going to come in the next couple days. And also make sure to watch my previous video as well. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.